Considering how infamous this man has become and how his policies have changed the lives of millions in both the US and around the world, I needed and wanted to dedicate a full episode to this man, and especially to the hearing that took place on Monday. And yes, I am talking about Dr. Fauci. Get your questions ready because the show starts now.
This is the Nico Lagan Show. Warning. Warning. This show contains explicit content. Listener discretion is advised. Real, raw, and shooting you straight. This is the Nico Lagan Show. And now your host, Nico.
This episode of the Nico Lagan Show is brought to you by the Alpha Creator Blueprint. If you are a male content creator looking to up your social media game, get millions of views just like I do every month, make sure to go check out tacblueprint.com and let me show you how I do it. My name is Nico Lagan. I am a voice for common sense. I believe in accountability, manly men, feminine women, small governments, free speech, the Second Amendment, and God. As always, I want to hear from you guys. So that's why I do it live. I want you guys to ask me some questions. I want you guys to not necessarily agree. You know what? Agree, disagree. Whatever it is, I want to hear from you guys. So don't be shy to interrupt. Don't be shy to ask questions. This is the whole point. I do this live so that I can interact with you guys. I want you guys to interact with me and call my bullshit. You know what? Question what I have to say. I've always recommended this and I will always recommend this. Question what I'm saying. One thing that I want to make clear. Thank you, Snazzy. One thing that I want to make clear before I forget, before I start this. This podcast is not about trying to prove or disprove that Fauci was not involved with the manufacturing of COVID-19. This is not what this podcast is about. It's not about knowing if the NIH was responsible for funding it. Not that I don't want to talk about this, but the whole point is that there seem to be proof, there seem to be disproof. People are arguing about this, but I don't want to argue about this. I want to argue about the simple fact that what that man did changed our lives. I want to talk about the hypocrisy that happened during COVID time. I want to talk about the hearing itself. What came out of that hearing, and does it even serve a purpose? Because man, that hearing, 3.5 hours long, sorry. Like that hearing was so fucking long. And this is what I want to talk about. I want to talk about what happened and not what we think happened. Because in my opinion, there's a lot of things that we should learn from the way we handled it. And I thought before I started that 3.5 hour circus, you know what? I'm going to call it a circus because that's exactly what it was. I thought that this whole mess would teach us something. We would learn something. But you know what? Not really. But here is what I've learned. Or no, I don't want to say learned. There are main points that happened during Fauci's hearing. And I listened to all of it. This is not me listening to 3-4 different reels on Instagram and telling you now what actually happened. I listened to the 3.5 hours. I listened to everything. I listened to 20 different congressmen / congresswomen give their opinion, ask questions, do what they're supposed to be doing, all in the name of democracy. For you and I listened to the whole thing. And let me tell you this, it was a fucking circus. Let me also tell you this, and I find that very ironic. You could recognize who was a Democrat and who was a Republican without knowing their affiliation. Every single Democrat on the panel apologized to Fauci and did not ask him a single challenging question. Every single Democrat apologized to him for what he's been through. They made it all about feelings. and you look at Republicans, some of them, which I will mention, went at Fauci the way it should have been done. That was great. But a lot of them focused on where the virus came from. And to me, I understand why we need to know. We need to know this shit. But the whole point of the hearing was to question him. They had the guy that basically represented every single policies that was done in the US and even Canada and even around the world, based their country's policies on what that guy was saying. And instead of attacking him and asking him questions about why he did certain things, they tried to focus on where did the virus come from and if we were responsible for manufacturing it. I understand why this is fucking important. It's one of the most important things we need to know. But he was never going to answer that, and they should have known. What the public wanted to see is his answers to what he controlled, to what he actually did in the public eye that he cannot deny, because he's done it. It's recorded. It's everywhere for us to see. But they did not do that. Unfortunately, the Democrats defended Fauci and attacked Republican, attacked Trump, blamed him for a lot of the problems. It's always interesting how instead of just concentrating on the questions at hand, Democrats tend to blame Trump for all their problems. But this is what happened. On the other side, the Republicans were trying to prove where the virus came from. There's a few of them that actually asked very fucking solid question. Let me see on my list here. There's a guy, McCormick. Dr. Rich McCormick, U.S. rep from Virginia. He's a Republican. That dude's a beast. That dude is a beast. He's the only guy on the panel that was actually a doctor that had hands-on experience during COVID. That dude was a beast, and he went at Fauci the way it should have been done in the first place. It was great. But most of the guys there, most of the guys and women, were either attacking the other party. They didn't make it about Fauci. And this blows my mind. They either asked him extremely easy question or they attacked him personally when we should have seen common sense questions. But before I get into those common sense questions, what I would have wanted to know, and please tell me what you think should have been. What are the questions? Please tell me right now. What are the questions you think that should have been asked? Because I might have an answer, because I literally listened to 3.5 hours of this crap, of this fucking media circus. And I have 4, 5, 6, 7 pages of notes. So if there is questions that you guys have, I'll try to figure out. I'll let you know if I have it or if I have them or not. That being said, there's a few things. The number one thing that bothered me about this damn fucking hearing is that they wouldn't stop repeating. They wouldn't stop referring to the next pandemic. Like it's for sure going to happen. This bothers the shit out of me. Because if on one hand you're telling me that it was not organized, that it was just something that it wasn't something that leaked out of a lab, because the Democrats made it very clear that they did not believe that this came out of a lab, that it was a natural virus that came out of nowhere, they wouldn't stop talking about the next pandemic. Like, this bothers the shit out of me. Like, why the fuck are we talking about the next pandemic? The next pandemic, the next pandemic. It's like, it's on one side, you're telling me that it wasn't organized, it wasn't planned, but you won't shut up about the next one. It just sounds fishy as hell. Now, one of the things that came out of this hearing is the 6 feet distancing. You guys remember this shit, right? We had to stand 6 feet from each other. Well, turns out that it wasn't based on anything. And he admitted to that. And I quote, the 6 feet just sort of appeared. And Fauci also said that there was no clinical trial behind that. The CDC put it in place. Nobody disputed it. And Fauci at one point during the hearing actually admits that even though they learned that it didn't change anything. They never corrected the CDC because you can't go against a sister organization. Speaking about the NIH going against the CDC, it's absolutely insane that there was no actual fact, scientific fact, to say that 6 feet distancing actually mattered. They did not even do the testing. They just figured that that was the best way to go. That is absolutely messed up. Now, there's a doctor, the representative out of Ohio, Dr. Wenstrup, and I'm sorry if I destroy his name, but he does not have an easy name. But he basically asked Fauci, did the COVID vaccine stop the transmission of the virus? And you know what his answer was? It did not have a durable effect. It did not have a durable effect. And then he also asked him, was the vaccine 100% effective? And Fauci's answered, I don't know any vaccine that is 100% effective. You know what? I get it. But Fauci mentioned multiple times that the vaccine did not have a durable effect. So basically, he admitted that because it had such a short effect of protection, that it did not really protect against transmitting it to somebody else. So for all the people out there that blamed me as a non-vaccinated Canadian for giving that to other people, and Fauci even said that during the hearing, that unvaccinated people are probably responsible for 200,000 to 300,000 deaths. Do you get that? So he's basically saying on one side that the vaccine is not effective in the long term, which explains why the million boosters were out there, but it wasn't good in the long run. So it didn't protect you for very long is basically what Fauci kept on saying. But what's interesting, he never mentioned an actual time frame, like he doesn't know. So is it that the studies have not been done properly, or he just does not want to say, or they just don't know for how long is the vaccine effective for? It's insane to know that all those mandates were put in place, considering that they cannot even confirm how long the vaccine is supposedly effective for. If there's a guy I absolutely love during those hearings, is a guy called Michael Cloud. Michael Cloud is Michael Cloud, U.S. rep from Texas. The Texas rep are fucking beasts, by the way. God damn, those guys are beasts. But Michael Cloud asked Fauci if business closures, church closures, and school closures were warranted. You know what Fauci says? Yes. So everybody that lost their business, everybody that lost money, all the churches that closed, all the school closures, as per Fauci, were actually warranted. Which is, you know what? Really messed up, because you'll see why it's messed up. Michael Cloud also asked Fauci if the mask mandate, especially the ones for children 5 or under, were warranted. Fauci admitted that there was no scientific proof for the requirements. So basically, Fauci admitted that there was no scientific proof that proved that kids needed to wear masks. He also asked, man, that guy, Michael Cloud, asked some really good questions. He also asked if the vaccine requirement mandate for employees, school, and military. So all the people working in schools, all the employees working for private corporations that were allowed to dictate what their employees could and could not do, and the army. Was it worth it? Does he agree with what was done? His answer, vaccine saves lives. Well, of course, vaccine saves lives. But he never answered the question as per the COVID vaccine. He's just talking as a general rule of thumb that vaccine save lives. I don't know for you, but I never argued if vaccine as a whole work. I never argued that. And all of the things that I've seen were not about the effectiveness of vaccines as a whole. We're talking about this particular one. And at no point does he actually give a straight up answer. But he made it clear once again that the durability of the COVID vaccine was short and couldn't stop the spread because it was so short in duration of protection. Another Republican, and Dr. Joyce is out of Pennsylvania. Very good. That dude is really, really good. First name John. John Joyce, doctor, Republican out of Pennsylvania, asked Fauci about mask mandates. He said the same thing. So he asked him on mask mandate, and he also asked him about his decision on the 6 feet. The CDC decided about the 6 feet distances, although there wasn't any scientific proof behind it. And once they learned about this, why didn't he speak? Why didn't Fauci actually talk to the CDC to tell them that, you know what? There's no science behind that. And his answer? It's not appropriate to challenge a sister organization. So basically, Fauci admitted that although he knew that there was no basis for the distancing, even for most of the masks mandates, he never corrected his sister organization. Because it's not good to question others and what they do. How fucked up is that? You have this much. That guy was one of the most powerful guys during that pandemic. Like, everybody listened to what he was saying. So many policies were done based on his opinion and what he was saying. Yet with all that power, he did not go ahead and question others. That's messed up, because with great power comes great responsibility, right? So why didn't he question it? See, this is one thing. I don't know if you guys knew this, but I was not aware of this. This is about the only thing I really learned about this whole 3.5 hour hearing is, did you guys know that the NIH scientists made $710 million in royalties from drug manufacturers? So pharmaceutical companies gave $710 million in kickbacks to the scientists of the NIH. Of course, Fauci says that he received zero out of it, but let's assume that he's right. I'll play devil's advocate, and let's assume that he's right. Why are pharmaceutical companies giving $710 million to a government entity, to scientists that work for the government, are funded by government money? Shouldn't that money go back to us, the taxpayer? Why the fuck did those scientists get $710 million from pharmaceutical company? Like, explain that to me. Why? Of course, you'll never get the answer to this, but why? Those are the questions I want you guys to ask yourself. I got to mention this guy once again, Dr. Rich McCormick, which is out of Texas, if I'm not mistaken. Let me make sure. No, Georgia. My apologies. Dr. Rich McCormick out of Georgia. If there's one part out of all this hearing that you guys should listen, and he's about 2 hours and 25 minutes in, I could not recommend more that you guys go listen to what he has to say, because that guy is a fucking beast. And the reason he's a beast is that he was the only guy, the only doctor on that whole panel of 20 people plus, and Dr. Fauci included, that actually worked on patients hands-on. He was in a hospital helping patients during the COVID pandemic. And what he said is fucked up, but he said that while he was treating patients, he was being censored by bureaucrats like Fauci. So when that guy is trying to save lives on the front end, on the front line, he's being censored by bureaucrats like Fauci that do not step in a hospital, that do not treat patient one-on-one, that are not hands-on. And yet the whole thing, everything that he said that he was censored for on social media, turned out he was right. It has been proven that it was right. I can't prove it now, but I want to see if that was indeed the case, if what he said was actually censored, and was he right in the first place? Because that shows, this is my biggest problem with this whole thing. Why was there never a debate? Why was it never allowed to question what was happening? Why wasn't okay for us to look at this and say, you know what? There's some things that seems fishy. Why are you forcing us with the mask, with the vaccine? Why are you forcing us to do everything that you want to do, yet you don't seem to have any proof? And Dr. McCormick is a perfect example. You have a guy like him that's on the front line that gets censored for his opinion as a doctor. He's not a podcaster like me. You're talking about an actual doctor that's on the front line, and he's getting censored for his opinion. But it turns out he was right. Like, that's fucked up. But why did that happen in the first place? Why was there no debates allowed? Because there's virologists around the world that spoke about this, that spoke about what could be done, yet they got ridiculed, their career got threatened, they got censored on social media, yet they were they were experts in their fields, but because they didn't agree with the policies that came out from guys like Fauci, people ridiculed them. People made fun of them. People did not respect their opinion, yet they were the fucking experts. This has always been the problem that I've had with this. I understand that there's always three sides to every story, right? I try to be somewhere in the middle and question both sides and look at everything and say, where's my opinion? We'll agree, I'm a fucking podcaster. I run a show. I'm not a doctor. But there were doctors on both sides of the issue that both had their opinion. Both sides had their opinion. Both were for what was happening. Others were, no, hold on. This is causing more damage, more psychological damage than it is worth. Like the physical chances of damage compared to the certainty of psychological damage. And Dr. Phil was great talking about this after he stopped this show. But the point is that there was never a debate where people from both sides with different opinions could sit down and have an actual conversation about what's going on. Why did that never happen? Why did people get censored online? And I was one of them. See, here's another point, and here is a few things that came out of this hearing that unfortunately was not addressed, and I wish that they were, because those are questions that I've had for 4 years now. Why were marijuana dispensaries, why were liquor stores still open when churches had to be closed? Why were marijuana dispensaries, liquor store considered essential while churches weren't? Why? Because here's a fact. As per research, 47% of Americans consider themselves religious. Another 33% of Americans consider themselves to be spiritual. Only 18% of people do not consider themselves either religious or spiritual, while 2% consider themselves both religious and spiritual. But the point of the matter is 47% of Americans consider themselves religious, 33% spiritual. That's 80% right there. 80% of Americans believe that there's a God, yet churches were closed. Can you tell me a better time? Can you tell me another time where people needed to be around other people? We're being told on one side that you need to be 6 feet away from each other. You need to wear a mask and you can't go to church. So basically, I cannot be close to anybody. I cannot see their faces, and I cannot go to a place where I can where other people that share my values, my spiritual values, are. I'm not able to be around them. And you know what? This is one thing, but I come from Canada. And when this whole fucking shit happened, I was in Canada. I refused to get vaccinated. I was a sales engineer by trade, so I made an extremely good salary. It's a career that I had been on for almost 20 years at that point. I'm as healthy as a guy as you'll ever meet. I don't drink. I don't smoke. I don't take drugs. I work out 5-6 times a week. I intermittent fast. Every day I eat one meal a day. And even my cheat meals are not real cheat meals. I've always been good with my diet. I've always treated my body with the respect that it deserves. I'm 42 years old with a six-pack. I'm in better shape than 99.9% of 20-year-olds. And I was being told by fat motherfuckers that if I did not get vaccinated, I would lose my job. And this is what happened. And this is a fact. This is not based on emotion. This is a fact. Repeatedly, my bosses told me that if I did not get vaccinated, I would lose my job. And you know what? As a guy that tries to see the good in everything, I can say today that I would not be recording this fucking podcast right now if it wasn't for the fact that people challenged me. Because I don't back down. There's a reason why I do what I do. Because I will not kneel down to people that force me to do something. You're not gonna like my fucking answer. If you try to force me, to coerce me to do something, you will not like my answer. And you know what I told my boss back then? That he could go fuck himself. I was not going to get vaccinated for the opinion of people that were not proven. And if there's one thing I've learned from that fucking Fauci 3.5-hour hearing, they still don't fucking know, and they still can't prove it, how effective it was. Him could not provide us with an answer. Yet, how many people do you know that lost their job? How many people do you know that lost their livelihood, that lost their business, that could not go to church, that were in massive amount of depression because they were alone? Here in Canada, we had fucking bubbles. You could not be around other people that you did not live with. How insane is that? My own grandmother died in a hospital without her family. Why? For things that couldn't even be fucking proven. For decisions that they took because they felt that was the right thing to do. And here's a question for you. And this is the most valid question that I wish I could have an answer, but I know I never will. How many people got vaccinated because they believed in it? And how many people got vaccinated because of peer pressure, because they did not want to lose their social life? Because by me refusing to get vaccinated in a country that has an 85% vaccination rate meant that I could not go anywhere anymore. I couldn't go to the gym. I couldn't teach martial art anymore. I couldn't go to the restaurant. I couldn't go to the movie theaters. The only two places I was allowed to go, grocery store and pharmacies. That's it. This is what I could do. So how many people in the US, how many people in Canada that got vaccinated because they believed in the vaccine? And how many people got vaccinated because they did not want to lose their social life or because of social pressure? How many families have been destroyed because of their opinions on it? Unfortunately, those questions were never fucking asked. And this is what I find unfortunate. Yet you had guys like Chris Cuomo, Don Lemon, that were all calling us people that needed to be prosecuted because we refused to do it. Don't ever forget that. That's another point. Don't ever forget the people that blamed us. Because even in the hearing, Fauci said that people that did not get vaccinated for whatever reason they didn't get vaccinated for are responsible for 200,000 to 300,000 deaths. Yet 1.2 million of Americans died during the pandemic. And I'm not trying to downplay 1.2 million deaths, but the truth of the matter is that you guys are like, what, 350 million people? That's less than 1/3%. Was it worth it? Was shutting down your whole country worth it? Because at the end of the day, people die. It's unfortunate, but people die. And I challenge you to go check out what they say about the people that died from COVID. They had a minimum of 2 comorbidities. So those people weren't in tip-top shape here. Those are people that were already sick, that were already at risk. So was it all worth it? Because when you throw that 1.2 million people, that's a big fucking number. But when you put it into perspective, 1.2 million people out of 350, that's that's a third of a percent. Was the livelihood of so many people worth it? Both financially, emotionally, spiritually, the whole damage that this whole fucking mess created, was it worth it? And this is the question I want to leave you on. Was it worth it? And, you know, as always, I want to finish with a good news. And you know what happened? If it wasn't for that, if it wasn't for people trying to force me to get vaccinated, I wouldn't be doing this. I wouldn't have quit my job. I wouldn't have lived in the woods for 2.5 years. I wouldn't have traveled the US for 18 months in an RV. If it wasn't for that, I wouldn't have done that. I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing right now. The past 4 years would have been completely fucking different. So I have no regrets about what happened. But it was not easy to get there. But, you know, I wouldn't be where I am today if it wasn't for it. And I wouldn't have given 3, 4, 5,000 free hugs during that time either, because I don't know if you guys probably don't know this, but during the pandemic in Canada, during the lockdowns and the mandates, there were massive protests against the government's measures. Like, I've been to protests with more than 100,000 people in it. And I wanted to be part of it, but I chose instead of going there with a negative mentality, I decided to go there and start giving free hugs. I would walk around with a free hug sign. And I have given thousands and thousands and thousands of free hugs during the time where people couldn't be within 6 feet of each other. So you know what? There's always good that can come out of bad. And this is my good news for the week. Before I go, though, I want to thank everybody that's commenting. Thank you. Thank you, Cody on Clapper. Thank you, Scammy on Clapper. Thank you, Snazzy, as always. Thank you, Barbara, as always. Thank you. And let me finish with a prayer. I want to leave you for your weekend with a prayer. And I appreciate every single one of you. When you comment, you like my stuff, you share it. That's your viewer on my show. I absolutely, absolutely appreciate it. And let me finish with a prayer. God, thank you for everything that you do for us. We are grateful for all our blessings. Please help us find the courage to stand up for what we know is right, the words to speak what needs to be said, and the will to continue to help and serve others. Amen. Until next time.